Okay, just wait for all the attendees to join and then we shall start shortly. Okay, let's begin. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to session 2 of the BGA Careers Month throughout the whole of July. Thank you all for joining. So as this is session 2, this block of webinars we've been doing is all to help with your careers and your career journey. I'm delighted today to provide with you a very cool webinar with one of our good friends, Matt Craven, who's here today to talk about the 9 styles of CV for business professionals. So Matt is the founder and managing director of the CV and Interview Advisors, and he'll talk a little bit about himself in a second. And for the Q&A, so what we're going to do is Matt's going to present for about 45 to 50 minutes, and then we shall do the Q&A at the end. So please feel free to input your Q&A or questions into the Q&A box in Zoom, and then we'll answer them at the end. Okay, so now I'll hand over to Matt. Matt, the floor is all yours.
Great, thanks, Ben. Hi, everybody. Great to have you on today. So this is me. Obviously, you can see me right now, but while I'm presenting, I'm going to be looking at a PowerPoint presentation, which is over here. So just to save you looking at the side of my head for the next 45, 50 minutes, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn off my video. But hopefully you can still hear me and you're going to be able to see my PowerPoint presentation, which is over here. So I'll go through these slides. This is all about the 9 styles of CVs that business professionals should have. Now, some of these styles of CV won't apply to all of you. Some of them will apply to you as you progress through your career, and some of them you'll need absolutely right now. And then what I'll do, by the way, is I'll turn my camera back on towards the end when we do the Q&A. So let's get started then. So just very quickly, I guess if you're going to listen to me for the next, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour, it's probably quite useful to know who I am and who we are and how we come to be qualified to talk to you about such things. So I'm the founder of an organization called the CV and Interview Advisors, or CVIA for short. So we've been around for about 16 years. So I'm a business owner. I guess you could call me an entrepreneur. I do quite a bit of speaking to large international audiences. Not that I'm a particularly formal presenter. I'm just like to deliver some knowledge that might be useful to people in my own style. I was a recruiter, so I've done everything from graduate recruitment all the way through to C-level headhunting. And my area of expertise is really personal branding and career development. So I've been in the recruitment, personal branding and career development arena for over 30 years now. So that's really my world. Our business, so we are a global provider of career development services. We've helped about 1 million people in 70 countries around the world. We've worked one-to-one with over 20,000 paying customers at all levels and all stages of their career. And there'll be some things that we'll talk to you about today, which might just get you thinking in a slightly different way. And just to be transparent, we will mention some special offers at the end of the session. Nobody's obliged to take them up. We're not going to talk about them too much, but I think some of the things that we have on offer, quite a few of you will be thinking, actually, that's not a bad idea. So we will mention those. So let's move through the presentation then. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the chronological CV. Now, this is the style of CV that everybody should have. Okay. Now, granted, if you've got no work experience whatsoever right now, then the next CV I show you might be the one. But if you've got some work experience, then this is the style of CV. And this is the style of CV that most professionals and executives, most business professionals will have for the majority of their career. So we call it the chronological CV, and this is the style of CV that you would use to apply for a permanent job, okay? So this is actually my CV that we've just chopped up into 3 screenshots. So you've got a number of sections. Now, over time, it may well be that you won't just have one type of job that you want to apply for. Maybe you could go down a couple or 3 maybe different routes. And people often wonder how they can tackle that. Well, you know, I don't just want to apply for one type of job. You know, I've just graduated, you know, I'd be quite interested in, you know, joining a graduate trainee program that focuses on, you know, sort of buying and supply chain and procurement. But on the other hand, I'm really interested in this other area as well. You know, so what you're going to need is different CVs for the different roles that you're likely to apply for. And that same concept, that same theory applies all the way through your career. Most of our clients have, or a lot of our clients have, more than one option they might be aiming at in their career. You know, I'm at a career crossroads. I could go this way, I could go that way. How do I get that into one CV? Well, you don't. You have 2 CVs, or at least you have a master CV where you can slot different pieces of content into it to tailor it for different roles. So where I'm going with this is this section here, the profile summary. You might have 1 if you've just got one area that you're focused on, or 2 or 3 or 4. However many different types of roles you might be targeting, you would have a different profile summary for each. This key skills section. Now, this is important. And I'll talk about ATS optimization later, applicant tracking system optimization. But this key skills section here, you need to match this with the job description. So you'll have a job that you want to apply for. You look at the job description, whatever skills are listed, so long as you have those skills, then you should be putting in this key skills section. Then we have this, career highlights. Now, this is an interesting concept. Career highlights are your biggest achievements or projects that you've done so far to date in your career. And you want to make something more of them than just a little mention of it in your career history. So what we suggest doing is creating little mini case studies that revolve around your biggest achievements and plonking them on page 1. So the idea is you might have lots of these, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of them tucked away somewhere. And as your career grows, as you get more experience, you want to be keeping a log, a chart, a record of all your successes, all the interesting and challenging things that you overcame, any projects that you got involved with or delivered. You keep a log of all those things, and they become case studies. And then each time you put your CV together for a specific role, you choose the 3 that are the most relevant, and those live on page 1. Then you've got your career history. You know, I'm guessing you all know that you should have that in reverse chronological order, which is why we call it the chronological CV. So you start with your most recent job, and you have the job before that, and then the job before that. Anything that's from some time ago, and you won't be at this stage now necessarily, but at some point in time, it may be that you've got roles that are so long ago that they, you know, don't really belong in the main part of the CV, and you need to start tucking them away in a sort of earlier career section. But that is what a chronological CV looks like. But the magic of this methodology is these first 3 sections. The career history, you know, you're listing the things, the tasks, and the achievements and outcomes of each given role. Now, I could talk quite in detail about how you order that information, but we've only got a certain amount of time today. So we'll move on to the next style of CV. So this is the early career format. So it's slightly different. So this is for those of you who very early in your career, and you don't have an awful lot of work experience to draw upon. And therefore, there aren't a whole heap of achievements and projects that you can make case studies out of. So I'm just going to get these bullet points up. So this is the best format for new graduates with limited work experience. It's also appropriate for undergraduates. So let's just say you're still studying and you might be looking for a summer job or an internship or a work placement, that kind of a thing. And we extrapolate this theory of having case studies. So you can see here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And these case studies revolve around transferable skills that you've gained. Now, when I talk about transferable skills, it might be different to the transferable skills that you think you should be talking about. And I'm going to sort of talk really openly here. When you're told that you should focus on attention to detail, communication, leadership, and things like that, you've been given the wrong advice, okay? Because every graduate that there's ever been focused on those exact same qualities. And they've got to the point now where they're boring, they're cliched, and they're not even job specific. So you want to be thinking about slightly more job specific transferable skills, you know, financial management, operational management, entrepreneurialism, systems and computers, project management, client relationship building. You know, just compare those I've just said to you with some of the stuff that you've probably put on your own CV or you've seen on other people's CVs. Now, I don't care whether a job description says you need good communication skills, you can work well in a team. That's fine, of course. They're not looking for people who can't work in a team, who can't string a sentence together. The fact that they put that on a job description does not mean you need to regurgitate that and say, I've got good communication skills because I went to university and once had to do a presentation. And I can work well in a team because I once had to be in a team at university to do a presentation. And I've got good leadership skills because I once had to do a presentation and I leaded the team of people. This is how graduate CVs go. And it's no wonder that a lot of people don't get that many job opportunities because, frankly, it's just cliched stuff with no evidence to back it up. So I'm going to tell you how you do it properly, okay? So let's have a look at this example here, financial management. This person thought it'd be a good idea to demonstrate good financial management skills. Now, that is a proper business professional skill. And they came up with an example of when they were a member of the summer ball committee. They played a key role in the financial management of the ball and actually did some really cool stuff. You might be able to read it on screen. Operational management, again, another very core business discipline, the operational side of the business. There's an example of them being involved in a charity event, I think it was, and making a significant contribution to the success of the event with 370 volunteers. Entrepreneurialism, where they talked about them being involved in a young enterprise scheme. Project management, when they were involved in project managing the distribution of 1,000 school uniforms to school children in the local area. And I'm hoping that a big bell's ringing now. And you're thinking, wow, actually, yes, that is so much more powerful than attention to detail and working well in a team and communication. And I don't understand why graduates would ever talk about leadership anyway, because in that first job, it's highly unlikely that you're going to be leading people. So you've got to try and identify the skills that your future employees really want and try and provide some evidence, do some case studies on page 1 of your CV. Okay, so that's the early career format. All right, let's move on. So now this probably isn't going to be as relevant to everybody, but some of you might already be thinking about the gig economy. All right, so I'm going to talk about a couple of styles of CVs that you might adopt if you want to be self-employed. You know, if you want to be a freelancer or a consultant or a contractor, then you might be looking for positions that are you operating as a proper self-employed business under your own steam. Okay, so that's what we call working outside IR35. So you can provide, you're providing a service to a business through your usually limited company, even though you're operating as a one-person business. So you need to make sure you have a CV that promotes your true business status. Now, that might mean nothing to you, but for those of you who are wanting to be freelance and self-employed, an independent professional, this is actually really quite important. So I'd urge you to go and start looking at the IR35 off-payroll rules that HMRC rolled out a couple of years ago. So there's a couple of things you want to do. So you want to have your limited company listed somewhere prominent on your CV. You want to make it clear that you're an independent professional or an interim manager or a freelancer or a contractor, any of those things. The case studies, if you had done some work for clients already, you would call them notable assignments. When you get work experience in that arena, you're not going to call it your career history or your employment history. You're going to call it something different. So you're going to reference it as contracts/experience. And you're not going to talk about being hired to do anything, because you're not being hired, you're being engaged. You've been engaged as a service provider. So as I say, that isn't something right now that all of you are going to be worried about. But some of you might already be thinking about self-employedness. And if that's the case, you might, this is something to take note of, or come and talk to us about it at a later date. I'm going to make a point here. When I was a graduate, and to this day still, people have business cards. I've got some in the filing cabinet over there. If I go to a business meeting, I'll give out a business card. It's what we do, isn't it? LinkedIn is now the place where we keep all our business contacts, whereas in the olden days, we used to exchange business cards and put them in a folder or clip them to our Rolodex. So I'm guessing some people might not know what a Rolodex is, but given that fact that everything is online, a Rolodex was like a kind of like a rolly thing, a spinny thing you had on your desk where you'd put it was A to Z, and all your business contacts would be literally written in ink using a pen in your Rolodex. So if you wanted to speak to, Jane at IBM, you'd flick through, Jane Doe, you go to D, oh, there's Jane Doe, there's her business card I've clipped in, there's her number. It's how things used to work. Now that's all online, isn't it? And we have online stuff, but LinkedIn is really the kind of, I suppose, the online, it started off life as the online version of your Rolodex. But the point I'm making is those people who used to use business cards and those people that still do, we would never turn up with a homemade business card. We'd never go to a meeting with a business card that was cut out of the back of a cardboard box with a name and telephone number scribbled on it, because that wouldn't look very professional. So I'm going to ask this question: why would anybody go to market with a homemade CV and LinkedIn profile? If we agree, it wouldn't be a good idea to do that with a business card. So there's some food for thought for you. Okay, what else have we got? Right, this is the case study style CV. So again, over time, I'm not going to spend ages on some of these, because some of these styles of CV are more things that you will have more interest in as your career develops. But there might be some of you out there already who are really thinking about this whole contracting piece. Now, that CV I showed you previously, that's great, but you get people who've got lots of contracting and independent professional experience, and their CVs start to get a bit unwieldy. Maybe they've had roles that have overlapped, or there's just been a heck of a lot of them because they've changed roles every 6 months because it's been contract after contract. So this is where you might have a different style of CV that we call the case study style CV, where you get rid of the career history and instead you just have a portfolio of case studies. So again, for those of you that are looking for a self-employed career, that's going to come into play probably at some point. And again, when the time is right, if you want to know more, get in contact. And then, again, not going to spend ages on this, but there may come a point where some of you are thinking about being a NED, okay, a non-exec director. A lot of boards bring in non-executive directors, so they are sort of advisors to the board, to the executive board members. I'm sure you all know this because you're either doing or have done a business degree, and you will know how a board is made up, and you'll know that a lot of boards have non-exec directors on them. But there's a different style of CV that one would adopt as and when that becomes appropriate. So this is what we call the Incumbent NED CV. So if somebody has some NED experience, the main thing they're going to do is they're going to have some examples of their NED experience instead of the case studies, and they're going to split out their executive career from their NED career, or their main full-time employment career from their NED career. What points just flown in there? Food for thought. Your CV generates you millions of pounds. Well, it does. The average university-educated professional earns in excess of £3 million in their lifetime. And it's much more for people who get to a senior level. £3 million. Your CV. Think about that next time you're writing your CV. This document that I'm here creating on a Sunday afternoon over a couple of bottles of beer, this here mere 2-page document, that's going to generate you over £3 million. Doesn't that really focus the mind on how important that document really is? Anyway, that's a bit of a showstopper, I think, that one. And then if you're somebody that's looking for an NED opportunity but haven't had any NED experience yet, well, guess what? That's just that chronological CV that we showed you earlier with exactly the same advice. And then if you've got some stuff that is vaguely related to the NED arena, then that might go in a little section at the back there. Okay, so I talked earlier about being self-employed. So there's two kind of tranches to that. There's people who are consultants, contractors, and interims. So that's those people who do kind of 6, 12, 18-month contracts. But then there's freelancers. So freelancing is, I suppose, more traditionally what we call the gig market. Freelancers are guns to hire. So, people who might do shorter term positions to fill a small need. So as a typical example, people who do like graphic design, a graphic designer, each contract isn't going to last 6 months. It's going to be much shorter. So you get to a point where if you listed all your jobs in a chronological way, it's going to end up just like so long. This is going to end up looking like a menu or a shopping list rather than something meaningful. So if you end up being a freelancer, so whatever type of business graduate you are, whatever business professional you are, if you're doing short-term work, gig-orientated work, then you might just lump it all together in one section rather than listing every job or engagement or assignment, if you want to call it that, separately. You might lump it together. So, for example, the guys that work for us, in a way, well, they are. A lot of the guys that work for me are business professionals, but they're business professionals who love writing. So what they do is they write business CVs for people for a living. and they have lots of short-term pieces of work. Now, it just wouldn't make sense to list every individual client they've worked with as a separate job, so they would lump it all together, like you can see there. Okay, so I want to now talk about some specifics, because it's the specifics of how you put a CV together that's the most important thing. Okay, so let's have a look at the profile. So the first thing you want to tell people is what you are. So this is, by the way, this is the first section that I've been showing you on all these CVs. First thing you do is tell people what you are. Okay. The next thing you're going to do is tell people what value you think you can offer. So what is the purpose of you as a business professional? Then you want to be talking about the probably top 4 things that you're really good at. What are you particularly good at? And we call these fab statements because the ideal way to write them is to talk about what you're good at and then explain the benefit of that. So I'm going to just show you an example of a real senior person, and then I'm going to show you an example of a more junior person. Okay, so if somebody had reached the dizzy heights of being a chief operating officer, well, then they'd simply, what are they? They're an experienced chief operating officer. What's their value proposition? Well, they're an expert in transforming and leading underperforming or stagnant financial services sector businesses. And then what are their fab statements? Well, this person is good at transforming operational infrastructure across people, processes, and systems. That's the feature. What is the benefit? Well, the benefit is to deliver best-in-class efficiency, cost control, and service delivery capability. And there'd be 4 statements along those lines. Let's have a look at another example of a slightly more junior person. So this person is a CIMA and MBA qualified management accountant. And their value proposition is they're an expert at interpreting complex financial data and producing insightful reports for senior management that aid business decision-making. Once again, they are written in a features and benefits style. Let's just go back a little bit, actually. Let's have a look at that early career CV, okay? So here's an example which follows the same format. So what this person is a 2018 accountancy and finance graduate. So we've still said what they are, and we've put with a 2-1. And rather than a value proposition statement, we've said that they've got 12 months employment and or internship experience gained within a leading regional accountancy firm and a global bank. So another way of thinking about that value proposition is what's your number 1 selling point? But then we've still got 4 of these statements. What has this person got? Well, they've got extensive experience of bookkeeping to trial balance and hands-on exposure of preparing management accounts. So it's a little bit harder to add the benefit on, but where you can do that, still do that. Strong commercial acumen, having managed a small internet business as part of the Young Enterprise Scheme, achieving 10K per annum profit. So what we've done there is we've sort of said, okay, well, I've got this skill, but I'm also going to go on to explain how and where I gained this skill. So the skill is that they've got strong commercial acumen, but then they've backed it up. They said, well, I'm not just going to say that. I'm going to say I've got strong commercial acumen, having managed a small internet business as part of the Young Enterprise Scheme, achieving a 10K per annum profit. Now this person, now this is an interesting one because we said just glibly saying somebody's got good communication skills is meaningless. But if you can back it up, it does have some power. So first-class communication and presentation skills, having presented at large student union conferences to over 500 people. So we've said that I've got this skill, but then we've backed it up with evidence. And strong client-facing skills demonstrated through a track record of achievement in several retail sales roles, which were performed in order to self-fund degree. So the kind of magic in that was that this person self-funded their degree, which I think is commendable at the very least. So if this is where you're at, early career, you're still following that same methodology. What are you? Think of it as your number 1 selling point. And then what are your top 4 key strengths? And you're going to say what that strength is, what that skill is, and how you've gained it. If you've got a little bit further on in your career, then it's what are you, what's your value proposition, and then you're going to have your 4 fab statements. So it's very, very similar, but it just depends on how much work experience you have at this particular point in time. Okay. Oh, just a quick popcorn break. So I'm just going to talk about these things we can do for you at the end, but you might be interested in what we do. So guess what? I've got 40 guys that work for us, and we help people all over the world, at all levels of their career, to create CVs that significantly increase their chances of getting interviews and job offers. So what we do is we match people up with someone in our team that's aligned with their background, somebody usually been quite senior within their career, and they have a 2-hour fact-finding session with you to discuss your career direction, your value proposition, your skills, your go-to-market sort of strategy, your achievements, them case studies I spoke about earlier, quantifying results, evidencing things, and we essentially write your CV from scratch. That's what we do. Now, some of you might be either not from the UK or wanting to work internationally, and you might be asked for a resume. So if it's a Silicon Valley employer, they might be more used to seeing a North American resume than a UK CV. So let's show you what that looks like. So it's a slightly different style grammatically, but it's the same concept with a value proposition and fab statements. I wouldn't be worrying too much about how that grammatical structure is different, but if you want to really study that profile summary there and the one we've shown you before, you'll be able to see that the fine nuances. And if we can get a recording of this session to you, you can watch back and pause it and just see the difference. But these are more separate sentences rather than a list. But don't worry too much about that. That's neither here nor there. We also have the case studies. The North American market likes things to be a bit more succinct, so we make them 5 lines rather than 6. And then the North American market prefers, again, a bit more brevity. So that section, the career history section, they don't like quite so much detail or quite so many bullet points for each job that you list. 2 pages is more the preference, whereas in the UK, if you're an experienced professional, up to 3 pages is absolutely fine. I'm just another thing that dawned on me the other day, a while back, we were at the Milton Keynes job show. And it was interesting because we were there along with loads of other organizations in the career space and recruitment businesses and employers. And, you know, we're supposed to be going through this cost of living crisis. But it was interesting because there's all these people coming up to our stall and other stalls talking about how they weren't happy in their job or they didn't have a job and they wanted to move jobs. And then they'd gone into John Lewis and spend 300 quid on clothes and shoes and things. Or they'd go into Next and do the same thing. You know, I think the point is there's lots of things we could all spend our money on. I go down to the garden centre some weekends and people have spent £300 on manure and pansies. People will spend money. People are still spending money. You go into your local town centres and look in the travel agents. You know, people are still spending money, but a lot of people are spending money on stuff they don't need. They just want. And that's interesting because I would say to you, it's easier to sell things you want, that people want, than it is to sell things they need. But I'm just gonna throw it out there that if you're a business graduate, and I'm going to assume your career is important to you, otherwise you wouldn't have bothered doing a degree for 3 or 4 years. And it's the thing, isn't it? That what is our job to us? Well, our job, our career is that thing that we do for about a third of our lives. It's quite a lot, isn't it? And what does our job give us? Well, it gives us the ability to put a roof over our head and food on the table. So it's pretty important. What is your ticket to all that? You've done your degree already. Spent that period of time doing that. So what is it right now? The most important thing, as far as everything's concerned, it's your CV, because that is the thing that's going to get you interviews for the jobs that you're going to do a third of your life, that put food on the table and a roof over your head. And that's why I think Ben said to me earlier that today's session is this session is the most popular, because I'm guessing that people on here today, have bought into that. But, I cannot stress enough how important your CV is, and your LinkedIn profile, which we're going to cover in a little while. Now, the other thing you might need, and again, argue as you get more senior, is an exec bio, and that's that one-page version of your CV, which looks like that. So you'd use that for NED roles, you'd use that when networking. So the more senior you get, the more that comes into play. And I want to talk about LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is going to be relevant to everybody on this session. No getting away with the fact that LinkedIn is a crucial piece of the jigsaw. So I want to show you kind of how you do this. Now, it's really important that you have a photograph. It's also really important that this section at the top isn't left blank. You need to put some kind of image there. Now, I've just got a skyline of London. I think I bought that for about £7. But to get a nice image that makes your LinkedIn profile look a lot more professional, then that bit there, that defaults to, if you're currently a management trainee at BP, that's what it will say by default. You're going to change it to something a bit more insightful. So talk about what are you and what your value proposition is. Now, the about section, which is the main section, don't just copy and paste your CV. We use something called the who sees formula. So the first thing we do is we tell people who or what you are. So a highly experienced audit senior manager, expert in developing audit strategy and spearheading the use of innovative technology, la, 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 la. A sentence, 2 lines, what are you? Who or what are you? And then, sorry, I'm going to go back. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to talk about your strengths. So that's what this paragraph here is. What are you really good at? And then the first E is to give a couple of examples. So who or what are you? What are your strengths? Give a couple of examples. Then this bit here, the next paragraph, is your ethos. And what we mean by that is, what's your philosophy, your ethos to what you do? Or in other words, what are you passionate about? And then the final S is your skills, which has now become a default setting. Isn't it interesting? For the last 7 or 8 years, we've been adding key skills manually to LinkedIn. And now they've decided that they need to be listed under every job, which then aggregates into the skills and endorsement section. So that's LinkedIn. We've been talking about these case studies, haven't we? And all those CVs I showed you, they all had case studies. So this is worth a quick mention. I'm sure that most people on this call will at one time in their lives have been read the story written by Aesop, the Greek fabulist, called Aesop created a series of short stories called Aesop's Fables. And one of those was The Boy Who Cried Wolf. I'm guessing everybody knows about the story of the boy who cried wolf. So he lied, he pretended that there was a wolf that was after him one too many times, and then eventually the wolf was upon him and no one believed him. I think he got scoffed up by the wolf. quite distressing story when you think about it, isn't it? You know, I mean, I can imagine being told that as a young boy. It'd be quite terrifying. You know, if you tell lies, you're going to get eaten by a wolf. Anyway, Aesop's fables and marketeers. I'm guessing you all did the marketing module of your business degree. And I'm guessing that at some point in your marketing module, it was explained to you how powerful storytelling is as a communication tool within a marketing context. And that's all these case studies are. These case studies are stories about transferable skills, achievements, or projects. And we write them using a little formula called STAR, which is an acronym for situation, task, actions, and result. And the result part's key. So there is an example of a STAR case study. That is actually something that I did in my career. Actually, not that long after I graduated. That was probably, I don't know, 3 years into my career. I joined Enterprise Rent-A-Car as a management trainee. So that wouldn't be that long into that career. So they bought another car hire company, and I was sent down to Brighton to transform it. So that's written in STAR. Word of caution, these case studies are great, but not if they're weak. And they've got to be quantifiable. So I talked earlier, didn't I? I promised I'd talk about ATS optimization. So just so you know, an ATS, applicant tracking systems. So did you know that 70% of CVs are rejected and never get read by a human? So what are they rejected by? Well, they're rejected by the recruitment software, the systems that recruiters and employers use. And there's two parts of that. There's the CV matching and the CV parsing technologies or modules of those ATS. And if your CV isn't written in a certain way, you'll be rejected by the ATS, and a recruiter or an employer will never see it. So there's a few things you need to do to optimize your CV for applicant tracking systems, or what we call ATS. So the first thing you can do is where you put your name at the top, put a job title after it. Not your current job title necessarily, but what you'd like your job title to be, or what you think you are. Use headings and use really obvious ones. So don't call your career history your work synopsis or something far-fangled. Call it what you think most people would call it, because that's what the ATS has been programmed to look for. The key skills section is really important because that makes your CV keyword rich, kind of optimizes it for those keywords. So the ATS sees those keywords and matches them against the keywords on the job description. And you want to be matching all the bullet points that you write. You know, if a job description lists 8 things that you'll be doing in that role, you want to really try and have those 8 things listed on your CV. Of course, only if you've done it. You can't make it up. You can't lie. And then make sure you put the dates, the company name, and the job title in the right format. And then if you want to push some of those soft skills, like being able to work well in a team and having good communication skills, rather than littering your CV with that stuff, which it's well known that that's not the right thing to do. But if you want to get that stuff in your CV, maybe some recommendations from bosses, people you've worked with, are a great way to do it. Don't just write references are available on request. That doesn't mean anything. Try and get a couple of recommendations from people that you've worked for or been involved with in a professional capacity. And then you want to have a postcode on your CV, because if there's a job that's based in Reading, I'm sorry, but it's unlikely that they're going to consider the person that's based in Aberdeen, unless it's, some of the graduate trainee programs will consider candidates from everywhere. Some senior jobs will consider candidates nationwide or even internationally. But a lot of jobs, if it's a job where they're not going to struggle to find talent for, they're going to have some geographic element to it. So that's where a postcode needs to be there. So I'm talking about that ATS stuff earlier. These are the key things to do. So job title after the name, obvious headings, key skills, make sure you've got the right headings, date and company name and job title format, postcode and recommendations. Okay, so we're going to do the Q&A shortly, but we've got some special offers for you. So if some of you are now thinking, you know what, Matt's right, my CV is really important. And yes, it does generate me a lot of money. And I do spend a third of my life at work. And you know what, there are a lot of people who are applying for graduate jobs. How do I give myself the edge? Well, this is how you give yourself the edge. You get a proper professional to write your CV for you, just the same as you get a professional to cut your hair and a professional to service your car, and so on and so forth. So if you don't have a big budget and you just want somebody to take your CV and make it 100 times better, well, this is the service for you. This is the CV revamp, and it costs just £99 plus VAT with a full money back guarantee, and that's 5-star rated. If you would like to sit down over Zoom or Skype or Teams or whatever with one of my team and have a real detailed 2-hour fact-finding session to find out about you in a load of detail and really understand your personal brand and your value proposition and your skills and your strengths and go through everything in loads of detail, then this is the service for you. CV and LinkedIn profile, and that's £299 plus VAT. That's a whopping £118 saving if you buy it by the 26th of July. Now, if you like the idea of having a CV and LinkedIn profile, but some extra case studies as well, you can buy some extra case studies in this package here for £399 plus VAT. So that might be for those of you who are a bit more experienced. Maybe you're a mature student, or you've got, just multiple avenues that you might be targeting. That will be the option for you. And that's a whopping £166 saving. All of them have a money back guarantee. All of them are 5-star rated. And check us out on Google. You'll see our reviews on Google. When in fact, to be correct, we're 4.9 star rated. I think we can safely round that up without anybody querying that too much. So we do get lots of orders, first come, first serve. So if you want an early slot, get your order in early. If you've got any questions, email us at info@cvinterviewadvisors.co.uk. If you want to buy it now and use it later, you can do that. But this is the URL you need. I don't know whether Ben will be kind enough to plonk this into the chat or the Q&A, but it's www.cvinterviewadvisors.co.uk/webinars/BGA1307/offers. So we'll try and get that to you somehow, so that you have that to hand. But any questions, let me know. But anyway, great. So that's the end of the session. Ben asked me to get that done in 50 minutes and leave 10 minutes for Q&A. So it's 3:49. So Ben, I think I've cracked it. I think I've managed to do it in 50 minutes. So that's great. So I'm going to turn my video on back now. There we go. Here I am. And I think, Ben, if you've got any questions for me, please shout them out.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, Matt. It's very useful. Thank you again for those offers. Yeah, I tried to put that URL into the chat box, but it's actually quite long to type out. But this recording will be put on the internet, so you can then look at the recording, which will be on YouTube, and find these offers and utilize them as so. Okay, so Q&A, like I said before, if you have any questions, now's the time to ask. So just plug them in the Q&A and we'll answer them now. So we received one, Matt, during the presentation. This, I think, is something you'll be able to answer, but Samuel says, what are the chances of someone who had job training and an MBA in healthcare getting a good offer, and in what or which sectors?
Yeah, okay, great, thanks, good question. So I think in itself, having an MBA and having some really good work experience, I would say that is great. You know, I always applaud anybody who's done an MBA. It's a great qualification to have and well thought of by employers. But what I will say is, for every job somebody is offered, there were probably 6 better candidates or better suited candidates who didn't even get an interview, never mind a job offer. Why is that? Well, that's because getting a job isn't about who's got the best experience or who's got the best qualifications. It's about who's the best at selling themselves. Now, obviously, if you're good at what you do and you've got some good qualifications and good experience, then you've got a head start. But there's plenty of people who have all that don't get near interviews because they're just not very good at selling themselves. And there's loads of examples of that. I mean, I remember, so I'm getting on a bit now. I'm what, 49. So I'm in my 50th year of existence now. And when I was a kid, we didn't have Netflix or Prime. We used to have to go and rent VHS videos from Blockbuster. Yeah, so we had a video recorder, not even DVDs. I'm talking about actually cassettes now, which were about this big, and you'd go and rent them for 3 days, and then you'd have to take them back. And when they first came out, there was 2 technologies. There was VHF and Betamax. Now, Betamax it's always been said it was the better technology. But VHF, they were better at selling their technology, and they became market leaders with a virtual monopoly. So all those old videotapes are all, is it VHF or VHS, whatever, and none of them are Betamax, even though Betamax was a better technology. So there's a lesson in there. So I think the person that asked that question, I think you've got a lot going for you there, but the key to success is going to be how well you can sell yourself, how good your CV is, being proactive about your career, getting skills and experiences that you know are needed for your next step up the ladder, having a good LinkedIn profile, making sure you embrace concepts such as personal branding, even as you progress, getting involved in thought leadership and things like that, and having a career plan and sticking to it. Okay.
Brilliant. Very well said, Matt. I did like that analogy about the VHS and those tapes. I remember I used to have to use them. They're a nightmare. But yeah, it's all about selling yourself, isn't it? Like having a great CV is perfect, gets you an interview. And then when you interview, that is where it's all you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. I don't think there's any more questions. I just put that, for anyone who didn't notice, I just put the link to the offers that Matt's showing right here now in the chat. It should work. You click through to it, you may be able to see everything that Matt's showing on his screen right now. I think another Q&A just popped in. So Elizabeth is asking if we can have the slides. So we don't usually send out the slides because it makes the email too big. So when we send like a post workshop newsletter, which you'll be getting probably at start of August because it's for the whole 4 sessions. But the recordings of all these sessions will be put on our website in good time, and they will be sent to everyone who attended as well. So I hope that answers your question. And something else I wanted to mention as well is Matt is kindly doing another workshop next week. So that'll be on the 19th of July, and that is on developing a career plan and job hunting strategy. So I highly recommend everyone here to tune in for that. And an offer that Matt is also kindly doing for us as well is if any of you on this call has attended the session before and will attend all 4 sessions, you'll be entitled to a £300 voucher to use at CVIA. So I highly recommend joining all of them, and you'll be put into the pot to win that.
Yeah, and if I can just jump in there about the career planning, I was sort of alluding to this in the last answer that you know, it's important, and I wish I'd done this. You know, I kind of let my career happen to me. You know, I spent 10 years doing jobs that maybe I didn't like, or I just did them. I fell into them. Opportunities came my way. I let the universe have its way with me, but I wasn't very strategic about where I started and where I wanted to end up. We always talk about, you know, planning. If you want to get somewhere, or you want to achieve something, you've got to have a plan with milestones in it. If you want to manage a project, you don't just turn up and think, all right, we'll just crack on with it. You have a project plan. In the same way, you need to have a career plan. And if you let your career just happen to you, you're not going to get as far than if you have a plan and you stick to it. And that's what next week's webinar is all about. It's about developing a career plan and a job hunting strategy to give you control over your career. And like I said earlier, you spend about a third of your life doing your career, and that's what puts a roof over your head and food on the table. So it is important stuff. So please pitch up next week to listen to that, because I wish I'd pitched up and listened to that when I was at that stage of my career. So I'll hopefully see you there.
Perfect. All right, so I'd like to thank everyone again for joining today's sessions. This has been session 2 of the BGA Career Month, and I'd like to thank massively Matt Craven from CVIA for today's presentation. It's been really useful. I've learned a lot, and I hope you all have as well. And he will be here next week to talk about even more interesting stuff. So I highly recommend registering now. The registrations are still open for session 3. And then I look forward to seeing you all next week. Okay. Have a good afternoon, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Cheers.
Bye.